प्रभु जी अजीत को बोल रहा हूँ किधर है प्रभु जी? थोड़ा दाल देखिए, मैंने दाल चढ़ा के रखा है, बस एक बार अगर पता पड़ जाए तो कितने मेरा क्लास चालू है।
अब क्या करूं, गैस बंद करके आ जाओ।
प्रभु जी वो आधा पका रहेगा प्रभु जी। मैंने आटा तो सब लगा दिया, बस चपाती लगा दीजिएगा, हो गया, बाकी सब कर दिया क्लास के लिए।
Gauda Hari Sutta Namaskar Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vedanta Srivasadi Gaur Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram. Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada ki. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Sriyuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamsya Shri Rupam Sabrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Nityanamani Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravan Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gaura Krishna Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Saptakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Paditanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavedhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. What is the revision of yesterday? You had elaborated on that verse, Deviation Gunamaya, where you had spoken elaborately about how Brahmachari life is like a walk on a razor sharp place, and you have to be on part of devotional service, like everyone, but the Brahmachari should be extremely alert. Yes. The person in a particular mode, and that mode is taking. So what to do? You have to take and guidance, put faith and guidance and thought. Writers should not write his own book. Removing of respect is very difficult. Take help of superior. Okay. Mainly the energies are Shakti and Shaktiman are non-different and different also. So that way we can remember Krishna seeing everything. Energy also. Focus on the point that importance of taking single guide. Someone about is cannot be always justify. four types of people who go to Krishna, four types of people who doesn't go to Krishna. Okay. Hello. So that the thing translated to his practice. So that's how we could practice. So the difference between Udara and Udara, those who worship the Lord because of those four reasons. Those others who worship other demigods, why? What is the difference? Why they are called because firstly, sometimes they think that demigods will satisfy more better way than the Krishna. Now that in purport also we saw that worshipping Lord is like watering the root of the tree, and the demigod is like a part of it. One desires to worship the demigod, then Krishna only provides them the faith, faith on those demigods, and Krishna only provides the demigods the ability to fulfill their. So it's about demigod worship, and the last thing what he is not able to not explore. Just speaking out to the mistress surrender means how people worship demigods. And they are called as less intelligent because they are not understanding that ultimately Krishna is giving them. Okay, that's about demigod worship. After that, what did Krishna speak? Or the other category of people who worship Krishna indirectly. The impersonalists. Avyaktam vyaktimapannam manyate mam sabuddhaya. So we discussed about Mayavadi. So these people, they study the Vedas and they have a lot of knowledge. But what is the problem? What is the problem? Kripasundar, what is the problem? This you should be able to tell. What is the problem with the Mayavadis? Why they're not able to understand? Even though they study Vedas, they think scholars on Vedas. But still they're not able to understand the real position of Krishna. Very simple answer, because you have not given mercy. The kripa Sindhu, you don't give them kripa, then how they'll get? Prasad leshanugrihita evai janati tattvam bhagavan. So that is what is required. Prasad, kripa. Then only one can understand. And then finally, the 25th verse, Krishna spoke about Naham Prakasha Sarvasya Yogamaya Samavrita. So Krishna doesn't reveal himself to all these impersonalists and other people who don't surrender. Krishna doesn't reveal himself to deities, demons. So even though they may see Krishna, they hear about Krishna, all that may be there. But still, without the surrender to the spiritual master, it is not possible to understand. Okay. Okay. So now we'll go ahead with the last section of the chapter from 26 to 30. So it's very difficult for the conditioned souls, jivas, to understand Krishna. But does Krishna know everything about the jivas? Yes. Vedaham samatitani vartamanani charjana bhavishyani sabhutani mam tu vedana kasyana. Oh Arjuna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I know everything that has happened in the past, all that is happening in the present, all things that are yet to come. I also know all living entities, but me, no one knows.
Because I know everything about the jivas, past, present, future. But me, no one knows. So why the jivas, they are not able to know past, present, future? Infinite. Infinitesimal. Okay. Anu. But the material body, so
The remembrance is given by Krishna only.
remembrance is given by Krishna. Okay, that is fine. So why he doesn't
Krishna
understand?
Krishna is present as Paramatma in everyone's heart, so he knows, but Jiva is limited to one's.
Okay, jiva is limited. Okay. Simple reason is because the jiva changes body. So when you change your body, you forget everything about the past life. So therefore, jiva cannot know, but Krishna doesn't change his body, so therefore he knows everything, past, present, future. Prabhupada is writing that in the first paragraph. And then he gives this famous analogy of Maya cannot cover Krishna. What's the analogy? Yes, Krishna is like the sun, Maya is like the cloud. So does the cloud cover the sun? No, cloud covers our vision. So similarly, Maya cannot cover Krishna. Maya only covers the jiva. So that's what that example is given. Krishna knows every living entity because when every living entity has the super soul. But despite his presence in every living entity as super soul and his presence as the Supreme Personality of God is less intelligent, even if able to realize the impersonal Brahman, cannot realize Sri Krishna as the Supreme Person. And Prabhupada concludes the Prabhupada by saying, even if one is perfected by realization of impersonal Brahman or localized Paramatma, he cannot possibly understand the Supreme Personality of God, Sri Krishna, without being in Krishna consciousness. So the next question arises, okay, so the jivas, they don't understand past, present, and future. But Krishna knows everything about the jivas. So why the jivas have become covered by Maya and put into forgetfulness? Next verse. Ichha dvesha samuttena dvandva mohena bharata sarva bhutani sammoham sarge yanti parantapa. What kind of bharata, O conqueror of the foe, all living entities are born into delusion, bewildered by dualities arising from desire and hate. Purpose?
The real constitutional position of living entity is that of subordination to Supreme Lord, who is pure knowledge. When one is deluded into separation from this pure knowledge, he becomes controlled by illusory energy and cannot understand the Supreme Personality of God. The illusory energy is manifested in the duality of desire and hate. Due to desire and hate, the ignorant person wants to become one with the Supreme Lord and envies Krishna as Supreme Personality of God. Pure devotees who are not deluded are contaminated by desire and hate. Understand that Lord Krishna appears by his internal potency. But those who are deluded by duality and descent think that Supreme Personality of Godhead is created by mental energy. This is a misfortune. The deluded person symptomatically dwells in dualities of dishonor and honor, misery and happiness, woman and man, good and bad, pleasure and pain, etc. Thinking, this is my wife, my house, I am the master of this house, I am the husband of this wife. These are the dualities of delusion. Those who are so deluded by duality are completely foolish and therefore cannot understand Supreme Personality of God.
Just a point on the previous verse. So we need to have faith that Krishna knows everything, past, present, future. So therefore, why something is happening in my own life or in others' lives may not be understood by our very limited intelligence and understanding. But we have to have faith that Krishna knows and what Krishna is doing is perfect. Why it is perfect? Why it has to be perfect? Yes, why we all ask Krishna? Yes, Suradham Sarva Bhutana. He is the best well-wishing friend of all living. And so therefore, whatever is happening in anyone's life is for the best well-being of that living, whether we understand it or not. So, can Krishna make mistakes? No. Yes. Sarvabhutanam, all jivas. So therefore, while good things happen to bad people and while bad things happen to good people, everything is good from Krishna's perspective. So this duality is only our perception. But from Krishna's perception, it is all perfect. That is the faith we need to have. Otherwise, we'll always be questioning, why this happened, why that. So many times, even in the society of devotees, questions are asked like, some devotees were killed here and there. But then why it happened after all their devotees. But then, that's the point. So yes, whatever is the needful to be done needs to be done on a practical level. But we need to have that faith that ultimately, whatever Krishna is doing is for the best well-being. Krishna knows everything. Since time immemorial, what the jiva has been doing, he knows. And how much is our understanding? How much do we know? So limited. Even this life we don't know what to speak of. So therefore, that faith is required. Okay. Now, as far as the jivas are concerned, why they come into this material world? Because of ichha, dvesha. Because of desire to enjoy independent of the Lord, and dvesha, envy or hate. So both go hand in hand. When one desires to enjoy independent of the Lord, then one hates or envies the Supreme Lord. One hates anything which is an obstacle in one's enjoyment. One hates that. So these are the reasons why one comes to the material existence. And once one is influenced by ichha and dvesha, then the next is dvandva. Then because of ichha and dvesha, one is in the material body, in the bodily conception. And bodily conception means there are bound to be duality. So I like somebody respecting me. I like honor. I like being honored. But I don't like dishonor. I like everyone else praising me. But I don't like insults. So every time there are these dualities going on because of the bodily concept. Because there are some things which we like and some things which we dislike. Something which is conducive to sense gratification we like, something which is a hindrance we dislike. And so therefore constantly one is being influenced by these dualities. And so therefore, it's only when one rises above the bodily concept that one can become free from the duality. Or one is not so much affected by the duality. Dualities are bound to be there as long as one is in the material world. But the important question is how much one is affected by the duality. So to the degree one rises above the bodily concept, and to that degree, one is not so much affected by the duality. The extreme example, of course, is Jad Bharat. Totally unaffected by duality, totally unaffected by the insulting words from Maharaj Raghunatha, even unaffected by the attempt of the dacoits to kill him, totally unaffected by anything. So that's totally beyond the bodily concept. So Prabhupada concludes the book by saying, those who are so deluded by dualities are completely foolish and therefore cannot understand the truth. So as long as one is affected by these dualities, the bodily concept of life, then it's difficult to understand the Supreme Lord. So anyways, this is the root cause of material existence. And so therefore, this is what one needs to give up. One needs to give up the enjoying mentality, the tendency to enjoy independent of the Supreme Lord, envying the Supreme Lord, envying the other living entities. So all this one needs to give up if one wants to understand the Supreme. So then, so the next question is, so these are the causes of material existence. Then how one can come out of material existence? Krishna answers in the next verse. Yesham tvantagatam papam jananam punya karmanam edvan vamoha nirmukta bhajante mam dridhavrataha. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life and whose sinful actions are completely eradicated are freed from the dualities of delusion and they engage themselves in my service with determination. Okay, read the book.
Those eligible for elevation to the transcendental position are mentioned in this verse. For those who are sinful, atheistic, foolish, and deceitful, it is very difficult to transcend the duality of desire and hate. Only those who have passed their lives in practicing regulative principles of religion, who have acted piously, and who have conquered sinful reactions can accept devotional service and gradually rise to pure knowledge of Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then gradually they can meditate in trance on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the process of being situated on the spiritual platform. This elevation is possible in Krishna consciousness in the association of pure devotees. For in the association of great devotees, one can be delivered from delusion. It is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.2 that if one actually wants to be liberated, he must render service to the devotees. Mahan Seva Dvara Mahir. But one who associates with materialistic people, is on the path leading to the darkest region of existence. Namo Dvaram Yogitam. All the devotees of the Lord traverse this earth just to recover the conditioned souls from their delusion. The impersonalists do not know that forgetting their constitutional position as subordinate to the Supreme Lord is the greatest violation of God's law. Unless one is reinstated in his own constitutional position, it is not possible to understand the Supreme Personality or to be fully engaged in his transcendental loving service with determination.
So here, the Lord is describing what is the qualification needed in order to come out of material existence and practice devotional service with great determination. Yesham tva antagatam papam. The one who has finished off his sinful activities, sinful propensities. So they are qualified. And jananam punya karmanam. On the other hand, they've increased their punya. So therefore, Prabhupada writes, for those who are sinful, atheistic, foolish, and deceitful, it is very difficult to transcend the duality of desire and hate. Therefore, in the second chapter also, the 63rd verse, Raga Dvesha Vimuktestu Vishnayan Indriya Charan Atma Vashir Vidheyatma Prasadam Adhikachati. So, material life means Raga Dvesha. Similar to Ichha Dvesha. Raga Dvesha. Raga means attachment, Dvesha means hatred. So we find that, so these are dualities basically. I'm attached to something and I dislike something. So these actually, as one devotee described, these are the pillars of the bars of the prison which imprison the conditioned soul in material existence. Raga, Dvesha, Raga, Dvesha, Raga, Dvesha. So this is constantly going on. if you carefully analyze, so then this thing constantly goes on within the mind. I like this person, I dislike this person. I like this food item, I dislike it. I like this weather, I don't like it. So constantly this is going on. Raga, dvesha, these dualities are going on. And so on that basis, one performs either pious activities or sinful activities. Raga, dvesha, vimuktestu, vishaya, indriyes, charan. So this is what the indriyas, the senses, charan means grazing. The senses are constantly meditating on the vishaya, which leads to raga and dvesha. So therefore, this is the cause of conditioned life. But if one wants to come out of conditioned life, raga, dvesha, vimukta, one has to become free from these dualities, from this raga and dvesha. So then, when one likes something, one wants something, then one is ready to even do a sinful activity because one likes it. So somebody likes to eat meat, then he eats. Because that is what? Vishaya Indriya. So the Indriya, the senses, they're meditating on the sense object. And so because there is a liking for that sense object, one is ready to do it. Because even though it is, and then somebody may, because of the, so again, it's based on the influence of the mode. So somebody is in lower mode, then he likes the sinful activity, because that's what gives him pleasure. When one comes to sattva, then it is the pious activities which the person likes due to the influence of sattva, and then he performs pious activities. So as long as one is influenced by rajas and tamas, then the more one will be interested in sinful activities. And the more one is interested in sinful activities, then it's very difficult to transcend the dualities. Then it is very difficult to come out of the sinful life. Then it is very difficult to approach the Supreme Lord. And so therefore, it's only when the sattva increases, then one can perform pious activities. Now the question arises here, are material pious activities necessary to come to devotional service? And Krishna is saying that punya karma. What's the logic?
Those who are free from sinful activity, they are coming to path of devotional service, but it's not that those who are not in they can also come.
Okay. The question is material pious activities, are material pious activities necessary to come to the path of devotion?
Yes, because while doing that, unknowingly he does some devotional activity like he chants the name of Lord or he tries to be devotees. So just Sukriti comes in that. So at least the mentality has to be there, like do some pious activity. So unknowingly some devotional service happens.
So chanting the holy name or coming to touch with devotees, this is punya or this is bhakti?
I think based on what he thinks. If he is interested in devotional service, he will go in that direction. But if he is expecting some gain from them, then obviously it will be considered punya. So still some adjustment will come in that.
Okay, yes, Ajna Sukriti, that is correct. So what is the cause of Ajna Sukriti? Material punya.
Hare Krishna Guruji.
But what is the cause of? So the simple question is material punya cause of bhakti?
Hare Krishna Guruji.
Necessary, but it may help as supplement. How? Because material pious activities help them to be in mode of goodness. Okay? They can catch up in service path. They can catch up devotional service path. What is that?
ये थोड़ा जैसे sometimes like accept devotee की कर like नहीं devotee is a worship that they will
Okay,
only
fine.
favorable but not necessary. But devotee is worship you are doesn't have any kind of activity.
Okay. So how the material punya?
Times in the terms of you will at least don't do this thing. So you know this thing that at least you will be able to see that for the but then he will be quite favorable towards his the service.
That's
Devotee
good.
stuff is all.
Okay, fine. So that's how material punya. So Vishnu Ajak Thakur in the commentary to this verse he explains that material punya can create a favorable situation for somebody to come in the association of devotees. Because somebody is leading a pious life, a life of goodness, then we find pious people, they go to various temples. You see that, correct? Monday they go to one temple, Tuesday another, Wednesday. So in their journey, so then they may also come to a Hare Krishna temple. Correct? If somebody is too sinful, then what happens? They never visit temples, they have no business with all this religious stuff. But if somebody is pious, then he may come into the association of devotees. And then in that association of devotees, he gets Bhakti-onmukhi Sukriti. So you heard about 3 types of Sukriti? Yes or no? Yes, no. Okay. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur talks about 3 types of Sukriti. One is Bhogonmukhi Sukriti. Bhogonmukhi Sukriti. Second is Mokshonmukhi Sukriti. And third is Bhakti-onmukhi. So Unmukhi means what follows. So by performing an activity, if Bhoga follows, then that is called as Bhogonmukhi Sukriti. So just like somebody gives charity to some poor people. So then what will be the result of that? Bhoga. He'll get maybe 10 times that wealth or whatever. So he gets more sense and charm. So that is called Bhogonmukhi. Then Mokshonmukhi means by performing an activity, if moksha follows, then that's Mokshonmukhi Sukriti. Say somebody performs some tapasya or something like that. And by performance of an activity, if bhakti follows, that is called as Bhakti-onmukhi Sukriti. So, only in the association of devotees, when devotees engage someone in some devotional activity, even unknowingly. So, somebody just comes to the temple, maybe you find so many people are coming just for a visit. So, if some piety is there, just like on New Year, so many people came. Why? Because they are pious. Otherwise, they would have gone somewhere else. Most people go somewhere else. You came. So then those people who came, so if somebody came for the first time, then obviously he hears the holy name, he has darshan, he gets some prasad. So what happens? This Bhakti-onmukhi Sukriti begins. What is the cause of the Bhakti-onmukhi Sukriti? Bhakti, not pious activity. His pious activities is a conducive situation. But so he comes here. But when he comes here, he gets the association of devotees. In the association of devotees, he performs some devotional activity unknowingly. He never came to perform them. but unknowingly he gets the benefit of some devotion. That's called bhakti-onmukhi agyat sukriti. This agyat sukriti. So unknowingly performed activity. And so this bhakti, the cause of this bhakti-onmukhi sukriti is association of devotion, not the material punya. Is this point clear? The material punya is not the cause. What is the cause? Association of devotees. And then, of course, the bhakti-onmukhi sukriti matures, and then he develops a taste for devotional service. And that is the reason why Srila Prabhupada in this purport is quoting from the Bhagavatam, Mahat Sevam Dwaram. Because it is the association of devotees which actually creates the bhakti punya. So therefore, what is required for bhajate mam dhrida vrataha, bhajante mam dhrida vrataha, what is required for that is bhakti punya. That is what it is. Therefore, and that bhakti punya is created in the association of this. Therefore, Prabhupada is Mahat Sevam Dwaram, or is Samo Dwaram Yokshitam. So that's how the bhakti punya is created. And to the degree the bhakti punya increases, then dvandva moha nirmukta, then one becomes free from the illusion of dualities, one becomes free from the bodily concept. The more one in the association of devotees renders more service, gets purified, then one gets free from the bodily concept. And to the degree one gets free from the bodily concept, to that degree, bhajante mam dhrida vrataha. To that degree, one's determination in the practice of devotional service increases. But the beginning is that one must give up sinful life. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada and the Acharyas have given the 4 regulative principles as vows to be taken at the time of initiation. Because by performing sinful activities, it's very difficult to progress. It's very difficult to get the determination to practice. Because as long as the sinful tendencies, sinful vasanas are there, then remembrance of Krishna and progress on the devotional path becomes very difficult. Tendencies constantly take a person away from remembrance of Krishna and progress on the Krishna. Therefore, then that's the basic platform to even begin progress on the devotion. So therefore, that's like elementary, giving up sinful life. And the more the bhakti punya increases, then one can progress, one can develop that determination to practice devotional service. Just like Shranvatam Swakata Krishna, Punya Shravana Kirtana, Ridhyantasto Yabadhrani, Vidnoti Surusata. So there also the word Punya is coming. So that Punya again refers to devotional Punya, not material Punya. So that's essentially by the practices of devotional service, bhajana kriya, which happens in the association of devotion. And the more that increases, then more one gets purified. You don't know the Suruttatam, the more one gets cleansed, and then one makes progress. Okay?
Here also the duty of Puja is bhakti only.
Needless
So that will be Puja word only is used.
yes, it is punya, it is pious activity. Now you can interpret in whichever way you like. But everything has to be seen in context. So that is also, that's also punya, this is also punya. But that is material punya, this is bhakti punya. Everything is pious activity. Pious activity means what? Any good activity is called a pious activity. So, but then there's a difference. Ultimately, it is definitely referring to the bhakti punya. is ultimately referring to bhakti, because only by bhakti punya bhajante mam dridhavrataha. That bhajante mam dridhavrataha only takes place by bhakti punya. But even if you take the meaning of the word punya here as material punya, then material punya only creates a conducive situation to get bhakti punya, but is not the cause of bhakti. Is it clear? That's a nice statement. The impersonalists do not know that forgetting their constitutional position as subordinate to the Supreme Lord is the greatest violation. Okay, 29. Jara marana mokshaya mamashritya yatanti ye te brahma tadvido krishnam adhyatmam karma chakilam. Intelligent persons who are endeavoring for liberation from old age and death take refuge in me in devotional service. They are actually Brahman because they entirely know everything about transcendental activity. So in this way, when one comes to devotional service, Mam Ashritya Yatanti Ye. So those who take shelter of Krishna, then what happens? They Jara Marana Mokshaya. They become free from old age, disease, death. And they Brahma Tadvidu Krishna. They understand Brahman, they understand the Supreme Brahman, because they know everything about transcendental activity. Adhyatmam karma chanchalam. So this is what happens when one takes shelter of Krishna. So Prabhupada is writing in the second paragraph, he says, the four kinds of impure devotees who engage themselves in the transcendental service of the Lord achieve their respective goals, and by the grace of the Supreme Lord, when they're fully Krishna conscious, they actually enjoy spiritual association with the Supreme Lord. But those are worshippers of demigods never reach the Supreme. So when one takes shelter of Krishna, then one gets this result. 30. Tadi bhutadi devam mam tadi yagyam cha ye viduhu prayana kale pichamam te vidur yukta chetasaha. Those in full consciousness of me who know me, the Supreme Lord, to be the governing principle of the material manifestation of the demigods and of all methods of sacrifice, can understand and know me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even at the time of death. Okay, so those who understand all these things about the Supreme Lord, Adi Bhuta, Adi Devam, Adi Yagyam, the one who understands all these aspects of the Supreme Lord, then Prayana Kale Api, even at the time of death, they will remember. Therefore, Prabhupada writes, gradually by such transcendental association, one becomes convinced of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and at the time of death, such a Krishna conscious person can never forget Krishna. Naturally, he is thus promoted to the planet of the Supreme Lord Solo. Then Prabhupada gives a summary of the chapter. Thus, when the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 7th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of knowledge of the. So we're going to chapter 8. Yeah. In the translation of the word.
The previous sloka 28 is Mahat Sevam Dwaram Ahur Vinukta. So Mahat Sevam is exactly only a sannyasi or who is it? As a devotee, what's the sloka translation? One who wants to render service to the devotee. Only devotee. Only devotee. What is the problem? Devotee is a small word about. No. Generally, here also we say that Mahat when someone sannyasi is coming. This is how we interpret it. Yeah. You interpret in whatever way you like. Not here.
So one can interpret in whatever way one likes. But then Mahatseva Prabhupada is saying the devotee. Okay. So the sannyasi is devotee or no? But there is no super duper here. There is only one understanding. Everyone is devotee. Well, that's a whole different discussion. Ultimately, if anyone is practicing devotional service, is devotee. Of course, from another viewpoint, rather than one lecture, he says, becoming devotee is not such a steep thing. So, one who is a new devotee, you call him also devotee. One who is advanced, he is also devotee. You have some different names? No. Everyone is devotee. And then Prabhupada's famous example, raw mango, right? Both you call mango. So now now the mango may be ripe, but previously it was raw. So that means what? Every raw mango becomes ripe mango. Correct? The condition is what? Yes. Stay connected to the tree, and the raw mango eventually becomes ripe mango. So therefore, both are mangoes. So similarly, somebody may be a new devotee, but he is devotee because he's begun the process. If he continues, eventually he'll become a mature devotee. But both are devotees. So therefore, Krishna's Gauraj Goswami, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he says that anyone who is practicing the process of pure devotional service is a pure devotee. So therefore, in Shuddha Bhakti Chintamani, he uses the word neophyte pure devotees and advanced pure devotees. Everyone is pure devotee, but someone is neophyte. Okay. So, 8th chapter, Akshara Brahma Yoga, attaining the Supreme. Okay, sections 1 to 4, Krishna answers Arjuna's questions, 5 to 9, remembering Krishna, 10 to 13, Yoga Mishra Bhakti, 14 to 16, pure devotional service, 17 to 22, comparing the material and spiritual work, 23 to 28, the supremacy of devotion and attaining the Supreme. Okay. So let's recite the first verse. First two verses will recite. Arjuna uvacha kim tad brahma kim adhyatmam kim karma purushottama adibhutam cha kim proktam adidevam kim uchyate. Arjuna inquired, O my Lord, O Supreme Person, what is Brahman? What is the self? What are fruitive equities? What is this material manifestation? And what are the demigods? Please explain this. Text 2. Adi yajna katam kotra dehismen madhusudana prayanakale chakatam neyosi neyatatmavi. Who is the Lord of the sacrifice and how does he live in the body of Madhusudan, and how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? So till now, Arjuna was peacefully hearing. Why all of a sudden so many questions? Yes. So because Krishna uses all these words and Arjuna is not a Sanskrit Pandit, so therefore he could not understand these words. Therefore he is asking a clarification for all these words. So in these two verses, how many questions Arjuna is asking? In both the verses, how many questions? You know, आठ कौन सा बोलो समझ लो कौन सा आठ है? हाँ thought? Correct. So there are 5 questions in the first verse and the 3 questions in the second verse. Okay, so basically he's asking Kim Tat Brahma. So what is Brahman, what is Adhyatma, what is Adibhutam, and what is Adidevam? What is Adhyatma? What is Karma? Kim Karma? Kim Brahma, Kim Adhyatma, Kim Karma, Adibhutam, Adidevam. And then in the second verse, Adi Yajna. So what is Adi Yajna? Or who is Adi Yajna? And Dehesmin. So where does he reside in the body? And then Prayanakala. So in this way, there are 8 questions. From third verse, Krishna begins to answer. So in the third verse, he answers, okay, this is. So in the third verse, he answers 3 questions. And in the fourth verse, he answers 4 questions. And the fifth and the sixth verses are answered to the 8th question. All right. Third verse, answer to the first 3 questions. Fourth verse, answer to the next 4 questions. That is 7 questions. And then fifth and the sixth verses are answer to the 8th question. Okay. Third verse. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Aksharam Brahma Paramam Swabhavodhyatmanuchyate Bhuta Bhavod Bhavakaro Visarga Karma Sanyitaha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead says, indestructible, transcendental living entity is called Brahman. His eternal nature is called Adhyatma, the self. Action pertaining to the development of the material bodies of the living entities is called karma or fruitive activity. Read the first paragraph.
Brahman is indestructible and eternally existent, and its constitution is not changed at any time. But beyond Brahman, there is a Para-Brahman. Brahman refers to living entity, and the Para-Brahman refers to Supreme Personality of God. The constitutional position of the living entity is different from the position he takes in the material world. In the material consciousness, his nature is to try to be Lord of the matter. But in spiritual consciousness, Krishna's consciousness, his position is to serve Supreme. When the living entity is in material consciousness, he has to take on various bodies in the material world. That is called karma, or varied creation by the force of the material consciousness.
So you see, what is Brahman? Aksharam Brahma Paramam. So Brahman is anything that is Aksharam. Aksharam means indestructible. Later on, Krishna will talk about Kshara, Akshara. So, I know that's a little different context, but here Aksharam. Aksharam means indestructible and Paramam means transcendental. So anything, when we talk of Brahman, anything which is indestructible, that means eternal, and which is transcendental, is called Brahman. Okay, now, so which Brahman refers to the context. So Jiva is also called Brahman, Paramatma is also called Brahman, material nature is also called Brahman, sometimes mind is also called Brahman. So the word Brahman can have so many different meanings. But then one has to take the meaning according to the context. But all this is Brahman because Sarvam Khalu is Brahman. Everything is Brahman. Everything in existence is Brahman. Why? That we already discussed. Yes, Shakti and Shakti. Because ultimately, everything is coming from Krishna. Therefore, everything is Krishna. Everything is coming from Brahman. Therefore, everything is Brahman. But then the Mayavadis land up into Brahma, about Brahman. Everything is Brahman. So we can worship anything. So that's another problem. But the point is the general definition of Brahman is Aksharam and Paramam. That is called as Brahman. So therefore, Prabhupada then is clarifying. So Brahman refers to the living entity, Para-Brahman refers to Supreme Personality of Godhead. So then, but a common general term is the use of the word Brahman, according to the context then one to see. Then the next question is, what is Adhyatma? What is Adhyatma? Swabhava Adhyatmam Uchyate. So the eternal nature of Brahman is what is called as Adhyatma. So the nature of Brahman is what is called as Adhyatma. So therefore then Prabhupada is clarifying. In material consciousness, his nature, Swabhava, is to try to be Lord of matter. Spiritual consciousness, try to be what? Servant. So that is Adhyatma. Adhyatma refers to Swabhava. Swabhava of the Jiva. And the Swabhava of the Jiva refers to the consciousness. Okay, so whether it's material consciousness or spiritual consciousness. So that's the meaning of Adhyatma. Adhyatma refers to Swabhava. And then, what is karma? Bhuta bhava udbhava kara visarga karma sangita. So the jiva, bhuta, bhava, according to the consciousness, then they get different bodies in the material creation. So that is due to karma. So therefore, Prabhupada says, when the living entity is in material consciousness, is to take on various bodies in the universe. This is called karma, or various creation with the force of material consciousness. Because of the material consciousness, then he accepts different bodies in the 8.4 million species life. But in spiritual nature, he has only one body. So then, further down, Prabhupada is quoting from the Chandogya Upanishad. Okay, read those two paragraphs. The Chandogya Upanishad describes.
Chandogya Upanishad describes the Vedic sacrificial process. On the sacrificial altar, 5 kinds of offerings are made in 5 kinds of fire. The 5 kinds of fire are conceived of as the heavenly planets, clouds, the earth, man and woman, and the 5 kinds of sacrificial offerings are faith and joy from the moon, rain, grains, and semen. In the process of sacrifice, the living entity makes specific sacrifices to attain specific heavenly planets and consequently reaches them. When the merit of sacrifice is exhausted, the living entity descends on earth in the form of pain, then he takes on the form of rain, and grains are eaten by man and transformed into human, which impregnates a woman, and thus the living entity once again attains the human form to perform sacrifice and so repeat the same cycle. In this way, living entity perpetually comes and goes on the material path. The Krishna consciousness, however, avoids such sacrifices. He takes directly to Krishna consciousness and thereby prepares himself to return to Godhead.
So this is the cycle of sacrifice. So the person performs the sacrifice, and then what happens? He goes to heaven. So when he goes to heaven, then he stays there. How long? Still? Yes, still the punya is there. The punya is the fuel which propels him to go there and be there. So as long as the punya is there, then he stays there. When the punya is exhausted, then he is kicked out from heaven. And then what happens? Then from there he comes into the cloud, from the cloud into the rain, and the rain falls on the ground, and then the jivas enter the various plants through the rain, and then the plants are eaten by man, and the jivas go inside and through the semen into the woman, and then again there is birth. And then if the child once again performs punya, then again the cycle continues. So Srila Prabhupada is quoting this to explain punya karma. So this is what happens when one performs punya karma. goes to the heaven, and then the cycle continues. So that's why Prabhupada is quoting. And then Prabhupada says, impersonalist commentators in the Bhagavad Gita unreasonably assume that Brahman takes the form of Jiva in the material world. That is. And to substantiate this, they refer to chapter 15, verse 7. Yeah. But in this verse, the Lord also speaks of the living entity as an eternal fragment of matter. The fragment of God, the living entity, may fall down into the material world, but the Supreme Lord never falls down. So this assumption that the Supreme Brahman assumes the form of Jiva is not acceptable. It is important to remember that Vedic Brahman, the living entity, is distinguished from Parabrahman. So therefore, both may be called as Brahman, but still there is a distinction between them. Not equal. Mayavadi. Wrong.
For linguistic knowledge is just better it is. Everything is about
So that is the Vedic aphorism. Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahma. Everything is Brahman.
it is total maybe understood, but how is it possible?
Yes, it can be said to be transcendental because it has a transcendental connection. That is the whole Siddhanta of Shakti and Shaktiman. Everything is Shakti, agree? Who is Shakti? Lord Shakti. So because it is Lord Shakti, therefore the Shakti by itself is transcendental. Of course, the manifestation of that Shakti may not be transcendental. The manifestation of Shakti is not transcendental. The matter, which is the manifestation of the material energy, is not transcendental. But yet, that also has a transcendental connection. Correct? Transcendental connection is there. But the matter is not indestructible. The matter is destructible. Has a transcendental connection, but is destructible. But yet, as far as the Shakti is concerned, the Shakti is definitely eternal and is therefore transcendental. From Krishna's viewpoint, everything is his Shakti. So therefore, everything is transcendental. That's what Devi Shagunamai Mama Maya. Therefore, Prabhupada explained that Devi means has a divine connection. The material energy has a divine connection. Krishna is saying, my Maya, Mama Maya. Therefore, material energy, material nature is said to be eternal. That is in our 13th chapter. But what is temporary? The manifestation of the material energy. That
Brahman also implies to soul.
yeah, that's what we just said, no? Brahman refers to Jiva, Brahman refers to Paramatma.
So here the impersonalist commentators reasonably assumes that Brahman takes the form of Jiva in this middle world.
Means the Supreme Brahman takes the form of Jiva. That means there is no difference between Jiva and the Supreme Brahman.
Here it's not written supreme. We are talking about soul only. In this or in personality that paragraph, it's not written that Supreme Brahman, only Brahman.
Yes, so everything is called Brahman, but one has to see in terms of the context. And then one has to see other references which show the difference between the Jiva as Brahman and the Paramatma as Brahman. But the Mayavadis, they don't understand the difference. So they think both the Jiva as Brahman and the Supreme as Brahman are same. But there are other references which show that there is a difference. Okay?
There is difference between the words soul and Jiva.
No, same.
Same.
One is English and one is Sanskrit. That's the difference. Adhyasa means the nature of the soul, the nature of the self.
Eternal nature.
Yes.
Basically, it is the soul nature, not material body.
No, it's the nature of the self. What is the word? Swabhava. Swabhava Adhyatmam. If you see the word to word, Swabhav is eternal nature, Adhyatma is the self. So basically, it is the nature of the self, the nature of the soul. And therefore, Prabhupada says, in material consciousness, his nature. Whose nature? The soul's nature. This is trying to be Lord of Matter, spiritual consciousness, which is to serve it. This is referring to the nature of the soul. What is that nature? Depends on whether he's in material consciousness. Yes. So Nitya Baddha, Nitya Mukta. So it's eternal in the sense that since such a long time, one is in material consciousness. 5 kinds of sacrifices into 5 kinds of fire. So this, this first sacrifice, faith. Here Prabhupada said that 5 kinds of sacrificial offerings are faith, anger, and mourn, faith. So is it? I think. So actually, normally we draw a diagram and show the correlation. So there doesn't seem to be anything to do that. So therefore, with the help of faith, is it? Okay. You have a pen? Okay, okay, forget it. So see, basically, if you see the 5 kinds of fire, and there are 5 kinds of offerings, you put the offerings where into the fire. Okay. So the first offering is what? Faith. So on the side, 5 kinds of offerings are made into 5 kinds of fire. 5 kinds of fire are these 5 kinds of sacrifice of faith. So faith is put into what? No. Faith in what? Faith in the Vedas. Faith in the Vedas. So when there's faith in the Vedas, he performs some sacrifices. As a result of that, where he goes? Heavenly planet. So therefore, faith corresponds to heavenly planet. Okay. Now, he remains in the heavenly planet till the punya is there. Correct? And then once the punya is exhausted, he goes into the clouds. So the next is what? Enjoyer on the moon. That is the offering. Enjoyer on the moon. So he enjoys on the moon, which is one of the heavenly planets. And then from there he comes into the clouds. Okay? So from then the clouds, then the next offering is what? Rain. From the clouds, rain comes. And the rains come where? On the earth. And on the earth, he enters into grains. Grains are eaten by man. The man produces semen. And the semen goes into the womb. Come on, we don't expect this question from you. Okay, fourth verse. Adibhutam Ksharo Bhava Purushas Chadi Devatam Adi Yajño Me Vatra Dehe Deha Vritam. Or best of the embodied beings, the physical nature which is constantly changing is called Adibhuta, the material manifestation. The universal form of the Lord, which includes all the demigods, like those of the sun and the moon, is called Adideva. And I, the Supreme Lord, represented as the super soul in the heart of every embodied being, am called Adiyagya, sacrifice. So Prabhupada is defining each one of these three. The physical nature is constantly changing. Material bodies generally pass through the 6 stages. They are born, they grow, they remain for some duration, they produce some byproducts, they dwindle, then they vanish. This physical nature is called Adhibhuta. It is created at a certain point and will be annihilated
at a certain point.
Okay, so this is Adibhutam. Adibhutam Shara. Okay, Shara. Shara means changing, constantly changing. So this is the physical nature, which is constantly changing, 6 types of changes in the material world. So this is called as Adibhuta. Okay, next is Adiyajna. So what is Adiyajna?
The conception of the universal form of the Supreme Lord, which includes all the demigods and their different planets, is called Adi Devata.
Okay, this is Adi Devata. So Adi Devata is the universal form of the Lord. Purushaha Adi Devatam. So this Purusha here refers to the universal form, including all the demigods, the sun and the moon. So this is Adi Devam. Then next is Adi Yajna.
When present in the body along with individual soul is a super soul. The plenary representation of Lord Krishna. The super soul is called Paramatma and Adhyajna and is situated in the heart.
Okay, so this answers then 2 questions. Who is Adi Yajna and where is it situated? So Adi Yajna essentially refers to the super soul and is situated in the heart. The word Eva is particularly important in the context of this verse because by this word the Lord stresses that the Paramatma is not different from him. So that is why the word Eva is used. Eva, Adi Yajna, Aham, Eva, Adi Yajna, Aham, Eva. So the super soul is me, certainly me. So the super soul is an expansion, but then in one sense non-different. And then he's describing the super soul situated besides the individual soul is the witness of the individual activity, source of the soul to various types of consciousness. And then further down he says about the universal form. The gigantic universal form of the Lord called Adi Devata is contemplated by the neophyte who cannot approach the Supreme Lord in his manifestation as super soul. The neophyte is advised to contemplate the universal form or Virat Purusha, whose legs are considered those planets, whose eyes are considered the sun and the moon, and his head is considered. So this is the first step in God realization, the universal form, because it is more easy to see the Supreme in the manifestation of the universe. There's something which is more easily perceivable. We see the universe, we see all the things. And so to see that how the Supreme Lord, the universe is basically an expansion of the Supreme, that is more easy to see because it's something which is manifest. So the super soul, Paramatma, unmanifest, you can't see. And then Bhagavan is even more different. So we'll discuss this more in the 11th chapter. Okay, so that is the answer to 7 questions. Now the last question, how one can perceive the Lord at the time of death? That's answered in the 5th and the 6th verses, which are important. Antakale cha mameva smaran mukva kalevaram ya prayati samadbhavam yati nastyatra samshayah. And whoever at the end of his life quits his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. Purport.
In this verse, the importance of Krishna consciousness is stressed. Anyone who quits his body in Krishna consciousness is at once transferred to the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord is the purest of the pure. Therefore, anyone who is constantly Krishna conscious is also the purest of the pure. The word Smaran, remembering, is important. Remembrance of Krishna is not possible for the impure soul who has not practiced Krishna consciousness in devotional service. Therefore, one should practice Krishna consciousness from the very beginning of life. If one wants to achieve success at the end of his life, the process of remembering Krishna is essential. Therefore, one should constantly, incessantly chant the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Lord Chaitanya has advised that one be as tolerant as a tree. There may be so many impediments for a person who is chanting Hare Krishna. Nonetheless, tolerating all these impediments, one should continue to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. So that at the end of one's life, one can have the full benefit of Krishna consciousness.
Okay, we'll read the next verse also. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam yajatyante kalevaram tam tam evaiti kaunteya sada tadbhava bhavitah. Whatever state of being one remains when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without faith.
The process of thinking was useless at the moment of death is here of sleep. A person who at the end of his life quits his body, thinking of his death, is the transmission nature of the Supreme Lord. As it is not true that a person who thinks of something other than his death is perceived as the death state. There is a point to be explored very carefully. How can one die in the proper state of mind? Whereas Bharat, although his personality, part of the deer at the end of his life, and so in his death life was transferred to the body of a deer. Although as a deer, he developed his past activities, he had to accept that physical body. Of course, thought during the course of his life, as it may, he creates his thought to rate of death. So this life creates was just life. It possesses life when left with the board of goodness. Rather than the sister, it is possible for one to get the sister at the end of his life. As the life said, he transfers the permanent nature of sister. If it is perfectly absorbed, it is transferred, and his dead body will be transmitted. System, not material. Therefore, person of Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Successfully reaches the state of peace.
You see here in all these purports, you'll see in this chapter, Srila Prabhupada keeps repeating the Hare Krishna Maha. Why? Because the title of the chapter is Attaining the Supreme. So this is the process to attain the Supreme, the Abhideya. So therefore, Prabhupada keeps repeating this because this is the Abhideya in Kali Yuga, the chanting of the holy name, to attain the Supreme. Therefore, he keeps repeating this. So here we find in both these verses, Krishna is describing how one can remember Antakale cha mam eva smaran muktva kalevaram. So, if one remembers me, Krishna says, remember. And in the next verse again he says, Yam yam vapi smaran bhava. Smaran. In both the verses the word smaran has. So it's remembrance of Krishna which decides the goal. So whatever one remembers, then similar type of body one gets. So I'm sure you have heard many lectures on these verses and this topic. So I'm sure any one of you will give a good lecture on these verses, right? You should be able to give. How much you must have heard? This camp, that camp. So you do that whole some exercise, on Bharat Maharaj story and all that. Anyway, so just a few minutes after something. But the important point here is that subtle creates gross. So it's all based on what goes on in the subtle body. And in any case, we are we have the same topic for discussion in tomorrow's Bhagavatam class. So we are going to continue with the same discussion tomorrow's Bhagavatam class. Okay, so stay tuned if you want. But that's the important point. And so therefore, we find that Narad Muni in his teachings to King Prachin Barishad, there's so many verses which he describes about the power of the subtle body, the importance of the subtle body. He describes many, many verses. So he describes how whatever one thinks in this life, whatever activity one performs in this life, everything creates impression. Vasanas, impressions are created in stuff. And so, based upon those impressions, all those impressions are stored, he says, in chronological order in the mind. Everything is stored. And for each of those impressions basically indicates what? Desires. One performs an activity because of a desire. So all that is stored in the subtle body. And to fulfill each of those desires, one gets a body. So that's basically what is material life going on since time immemorial. So many impressions, so many desires, and based upon those desires, one gets body. So even amongst the human species, so here everyone has different body, correct? No two bodies are alike. So why all these different types of bodies? Yes, it's all based on desire. To fulfill a desire, one is given a particular type of body. So if one is thinking why I'm short, why I'm tall, why I'm fat, why I'm like this, why I'm like that, what is the cause? The whole problem is mine, nobody else's problem. It is all because of me only. This jiva. It's all because of this jiva only. This jiva's desire. Therefore, this type of body is. No need to blame anyone else. The only person to be blamed is myself. Nobody else. And so similarly, the next body will also be decided based upon what I desire. Very simple. Therefore, the important point is that the subtle body is what needs to be transformed. Therefore, in both the verses, Krishna is talking about smaran. What is the smaran? That is what is going to decide the next. So therefore, our goal has to be antakale cha mam. So if we remember Krishna at the time of death, then one can achieve the Lord's abode. Therefore, it's not simply about how we engage the gross body. So ultimately, the engagements of the gross body should lead to smaran. Therefore, even when we are engaging the gross body in different activities, they should not be done simply mechanically. So one has to focus on whether the smaran is increasing or not. Because ultimately it is that smaran which is going to create the next gross body. And therefore Prabhupada is emphasizing here the chanting of the holy name. Because, as Prabhupada says, that is the easiest way in Kali Yuga to remember this. Because the holy name is not different. So if we are chanting the holy names, as Prabhupada says, how often? What's Prabhupada writing? What is the exact word read? Yes, incessantly and constantly. Of course, both the words in one and the same meaning, but still to emphasize Prabhupada, incessantly and constantly. So that's not an easy state to come to. Kirtaniya Sadahari. And therefore Prabhupada is saying. So what is the pre-qualification for Kirtaniya Sadahari? Rinadapi Sunichena, Tarorapi Saishnuna, Amanina Manade. Then Kirtaniya Sadahari. But then to come to this state of humility and tolerance and no desire for respect, giving respect to all others, not so easy. Practically, one has to rise above bodily conception. Then only one can do this. Then it is possible to always chant the Holy. So, another important statement Prabhupada is writing in the purport to the 6th verse is the so in the 5th verse purport is speaking about the practice. The remembrance of Krishna is not possible for the impure soul who has not practiced Krishna consciousness in devotion. Therefore, one should practice Krishna consciousness from the very beginning of life. It's all a matter of practice. The practice is required. As they say, practice makes and perfect. So in any field, the principle applies. Practice is required. So things don't happen just automatically. Practice is required. So practicing remembrance is required. So all what we are doing from morning to night is practice to ultimately come to the point of remembrance. This is the whole practice. Ultimately, all the activities are for that. So from the very beginning of life purposes, one should practice. I don't know, anyone here, right from the beginning of life, started practicing? Huh? But that is what is expected. But okay, that's probably better late than never. At least from whatever stage one has come, at least already so many years we have wasted. In most cases, I think so, at least 20, 25 years. So then at least from whatever stage one has come, then one has to be serious in the practice. Practice is required. If we think that, and then these days this talk has become quite a good talk, where the concessions are there, where the loopholes are there, then there's a lot of talk. Okay, Mahaprabhu is very merciful, so and Prabhupada is even more merciful. You can catch the dhoti and the kurta and this and that. So one does not want to practice. So then find where the concessions are available. Use the stuff. But here it's very clear. One should practice from the very beginning. If one wants to achieve success, if one doesn't want to achieve, relax, no problem. If one wants to achieve, Prabhupada's statements are very precise. If one wants to achieve success at the end of his life, then the process of remembering Krishna is essential, mandatory. And then in the 6th verse, Prabhupada writes, of course, one's thoughts during the course of one's life accumulate to influence one's thoughts at the moment of death. So this life creates one. So sometimes it's said that at the end of life, then the entire life is played in front of one's mental vision, like a cinema reel. And then somewhere it will stop. Then whatever vision one has at the time of death, wherever that reel stops, that is what one means. So therefore, sometimes Prabhupada says, any material desire one has, one will have to take birth to fulfill that. So, of course, again, in that chapter 29 of the 4th canto, Srila Prabhupada explains that even though there are unlimited desires stored within the subtle body, so, but if one takes to devotional service, then sometimes the desires can be fulfilled in dreams. Some of the desires get fulfilled in dreams, and that's how then some of those are nullified. But then ultimately, of course, Krishna, within just one moment, he can wipe out all those impressions within the mind. But then for that, one has to attract the grace of Krishna, what we're all saying. But then otherwise, all the thoughts accumulate to influence one's thoughts at the moment of death. And so this life creates one's next life. So if in one's present life, one lives in the mode of goodness, always thinks of Krishna, then it is possible for one to remember Krishna at the end of, then one will transfer to Krishna. If one is transiently absorbed in Krishna's service, then his next body will be transferred. So one has to be absorbed in Krishna's service. The absorption is important. Be absorbed. The consciousness has to be absorbed. Then it's possible. So nothing superficial. So in Krishna consciousness, nothing is a ritual. Everything is spiritual. So the consciousness needs to be absorbed. Whatever we are doing, whether we're chanting, whether we're reading, whether we're hearing, we're doing some service, everything, there has to be that absorption. Absorption to please Krishna. That's the meaning of Krishna consciousness. Then, by Krishna's mercy, one will be able to remember Krishna at the time of death. So it's not an easy task. Remembrance of Krishna only comes by the grace of, because remembrance of Krishna and Krishna are non-different. Absolute, that's the meaning of absolute. Non-different. So Prabhupada writes in a further purport, we'll see that remembrance of Krishna, and especially at the time of death, when situation is very difficult, so much of pain, so much of fever, and so on. So it's not an easy thing. So the remembrance comes only by the grace of Krishna. But we have to, so all what we are doing is somehow trying to attract that grace of Guru and Krishna. Read a few. Okay, so this is a quote from the 10th canto. Because the mind is ultimately controlled by Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, the word apasmriti is significant. Forgetfulness of one's own identity is called apasmriti. This apasmriti can be controlled by Supreme Lord. For the Lord says, Matta smriti jnanam apohanam cha. From me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. Instead of allowing one to forget one's real position, Krishna can revive one's original identity at the time of one's death. Even though the mind may be flickering,
Although the mind may work imperfectly at the time of death, Krishna gives a devotee shelter at his lotus feet. Therefore, when a devotee gives up his body, the mind does not take him to another material body. Tattva deham punarjanma naiti. Rather, Krishna takes the devotee to the place where he is engaging in his pastime, Mahameti. As we have already discussed previous verses, one's consciousness One's consciousness, therefore, must always be absorbed in Krishna, and then one's life will be successful.
You see the same word? In that purport also Prabhupada used the word absorbed. In this purport also use the same word. One's consciousness must always be absorbed. Then one's life will. But in any case, the important point is, who's controlling this remembrance, forgetfulness? Krishna. Matta smriti jnanam. So even though, Prabhupada is explaining, even though mind may be flickering, very difficult situation, the body is collapsing, but if Krishna wants, whatever may be the situation, if Krishna wants, he can do that. So for that, what we have to do? Practice. Practice to be absorbed. That is our only qualification. We can only practice. If we practice sincerely, Krishna is pleased by the practice, especially if Guru and the Vaishnavas are pleased by the practice, then Krishna is pleased. Yasya prasadat bhagavad prasadat. Then by their mercy, then Krishna can give his own remembrance. That is all. But what we are supposed to do? Practice. So at least we practice. Then at the time of death, things are not in our control. Correct? We don't have control. That time control is fully in Krishna. But if we have done our part sincerely, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Samved Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare